some possibly janky direct database access, but I'm going to probably steer you away from doing that. It's probably a bad idea. Or the third option, which is what we're going to explore today, is checking out wpdb. I'll tell you that I've done a lot of item number 1. I've done a few of item number 3, and I've probably done more of number 2 than I probably should tell you about, but that's okay. We don't do that anymore. We stopped all of that. So what the hell is wpdb? That's a little snippet of information that I got out of the codex, but I'll tell you that wpdb is basically like a database handler. It's kind of an easy way for you to pass data in, get data out of the WordPress database in a relatively secure way, meaning do it wrong. Of course, there's insecure ways to do about it, but this WPDB basically has your back in most instances. So we'll just go ahead and dig in real quick. So here is a basic WordPress database, if you've ever seen what this looks like. This is the standard 11 tables plus an extra 12th table that I've added in there for my contacts.
Yeah,
and
we can't see your slide. We can't see your slides.
Is that going to make it difficult? Please hold.
There we go.
Cool.
Thank you, sir.
Let's see if I can run through this. WPDB. Hi, I'm John. There's your problem. Options, number 1, number 2, number 3. This is the amazing quote I was telling you about, where I was just staring at the screen apparently.
All we see is your keynote screen with on slide 1. There we go.
Alright, so that old school style. Is it large enough that you can read it?
Can you hit play or?
Yeah, I did. And that's when things went haywire.
Were you sharing the screen or were you sharing the program? Try sharing the screen and then do full screen.
Google Hangout never goes very smooth. We'll blame
Google Hangout, darn you. Okay, let's try desktop 1.
Maybe we can get a little bit of a discount from Google Hangout.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, so you should see slide 1.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Boom.
We're good?
Yeah, now we see your face on the slide.
Yes. This is way better.
Alright.
Alright, hi, I'm John. Problem, database, yes. So, the option I told you about. So this is the query, this is the explanation out of the codex. We'll give you a second to read that, but basically WPDB is the database handler that we're going to use to kind of pass data back and forth between our table and and WordPress. So let's dig in. So hey, here we go. You can probably see it this time.
Yes.
This is the standard WordPress. I did a complete fresh install of WordPress, and what I did was I added a single table in there for my contacts, and this would be something very similar when a client's got data. Now, you may notice that I added the WP underscore so that it kind of lined up and kind of fit with the rest of the structure, but honestly, it didn't need to be that way. And so if I was, let's say that I was writing a plugin that was going to have a dozen of its own tables, which by the way is the wrong way to do it, but if I was, for whatever reason, I could give them a separate prefix. All of my database tables kind of lined up next to each other, either above or below all of the WordPress stuff. So the name of the table doesn't actually matter, and I'll show you how that works in just a second. So here's what our database. This is a very simple table. It's just a list of contacts, first names, last names, emails, and phone numbers. this is going to come up later, but I'm going to show you that I actually formatted the phone numbers in the database, which is, obviously that you get to decide how you want to deal with that, whether you want to format it inside or whether you want to format it outside and format it with code right before you display it on the screen. But that's kind of up to you. So first up, we need to tell WordPress that we even have this new table, because just by doing this and adding our table in here, that table exists, but WordPress really has no way of knowing that it's there. And the nice part about that is, technically speaking, you can throw whatever other tables in your database and access them through whatever other methods that you needed, and you wouldn't actually be interfering with WordPress. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use a little, I created a little function, and I actually wrote this as part of a very small little plugin, which I'll make available to you guys if you want to check it out at the end. You're more than welcome to. But this is a very simple function, and in the function I'm doing two things. One is if you look at line 15 there on the global, I'm making wpdb available inside of my function. We're going to need that. And the table prefix is if you did want to make it so that all of your tables just use the standard, whatever your prefix is for your database. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be WP_. But again, if you wanted to kind of set that to something else, you could. But table_ prefix is the kind of the WordPress global. I think it's set inside of WP config. So what I'm going to do is on line 16 is I'm checking to see if I've already got this database table set. So I'm inside of wpdb. I want to make a new container called my_contacts. And there on line 17, what I'm doing is I'm telling WordPress that anytime it sees wpdb my_contacts, I want that to be basically my table, which is going to be the table prefix _ my_contacts. And so I'm setting that at the init level, so that'll be available to us no matter where we are inside of WordPress. So at this point now, WordPress is going to treat our table just like it would any of the other tables. So we can technically access it just like we would any other chunks of data inside of WordPress, which is pretty darn handy. So speaking of accessing our table, let's do that. Get results is your friend. This is a very quick little snippet that basically says, I'm going to create a new variable called contacts, and I want you to get the results. And in there, I have done the most basic of MySQL searches, right? Select star from my database table. Now, it doesn't need to be like this, obviously. You could make this the most complex thing in the world. You could add variables in there. You can search for the last 10, join tables, blah, blah, blah. Any MySQL query that you plan on running against your database, you could do right in here. And so that is really, literally just the absolute very basics. So what I did for the case of this example is I created a little short code with the premise that I wanted to display the list of contacts on a page. So I won't go into too terribly much the process of creating a short code. You can research that after. But inside of my function, you can see I've made global wpdb. I want that available. And there's that on line 31, as you can see, that chunk of code that I just showed you where I'm pulling in my results. And then I'm literally just kind of looping through this at this point. I'm checking to see if there's contacts available. And down at line 46, if there are, I'm just going to go ahead and loop through them. And so you can see on like line 49 where, oh, and by the way, I'm sure right now if there's any designers in the room, you guys are all looking at the fact that I built this as a table and going, what the hell is this guy doing? I wouldn't honestly do this, but for the sake of this particular chunk of data, it makes it very easy for an example. So I'm simply listing through all of the rows of the database, and you can see, because I did a select star, I'm not limiting it at all. I'm just saying, give me the entire thing. Luckily, there's only 100 in here, so the table should be, or the page should be relatively short. But you can see that I've added contacts, first underscore name, which is the column names, first name, last name, email, and phone. So I've added those. And here's my shortcode. I've added it to a page called My Contacts. And real simply, it's just pulled through and not doing any sort of sorting or anything. It's just giving me a big spit out of all of the database tables. Does anybody have any questions at this point? I'll go with no. Okay. Adding data to our custom database table. I missed a line. Awesome. So it's not good enough that we are now just pulling data out of that database table. We're undoubtedly going to need to throw data back into it. So again, we can do this very simply. This is a very, very basic form that I've created to just kind of post data back to it. First name, last name, email, and phone. You can see on line 33, I'm using the WP nonce field. If you plan on collecting any sort of data from, well, technically speaking, I don't care if you're doing it on the front end or the back end of your site, inside of WP admin or on the front end, you should absolutely be using the nonce fields for any sort of form validation. If you're unfamiliar with those, please make a note right now and go check those out after we're done. So here's my simple form, which ends up looking like this once I add it to the front page. And once I add, click on Add Connect, in my code, what I'm doing is I'm now doing WP verify nonce. So this is basically, what we're really trying to do is making sure that the post that I'm getting is coming from the page that I'm expecting it to come from. If those two don't match up, or if it doesn't have that, in this case, the base name file, if it doesn't even include that, this is just going to fail and we're safe. So what we're really trying to do is stop from SQL injections is really what it boils down to. We don't want junk going into our database. There you go. So from the codex, I'll just let you read that. I'm not going to read it to you. What we're basically going to do is we are going to use, kind of like the get results, we're going to use the opposite, which is going to be query and prepare. These two things are probably some of the most powerful things in here. It's really quite easy it's awesome how easy this stuff is. So what I've done here is I'm basically preparing my database query. So I'm using the wpdb query function, and inside of there, I'm actually telling WordPress that I want it to prepare my data for me. So obviously, the nice part about it is, kind of going back to this, is instead of having to go and escape all of the stuff manually, the prepare function is going to do that for me. So I can kind of keep my code here relatively clean and tell it that I want to insert this data, what fields I want it to, or I'm sorry, what columns I want it to go in, first name, last name, email, and phone, and then the types of values that I'm going to be sending it. In this case, they're all going to be strings. And then the 4 different columns, the 4 different pieces of data that I wanted to throw into each of those. First name, last name, email, and phone out of the post variable. And so once I hit submit, there you go. You can see that I've added my data to the database. I'm going to point out again the phone number. You'll notice that I kind of let myself add in whatever phone validation I wanted. For me, I would probably actually strip out all of the phone number formatting entirely, and I would kind of split that up into just have it being 7 digits, and then that way you can kind of deal with it however you want on the display side. And Honestly, that's really just the beginning. This is a very basic intro to how this stuff works. There are two resources that I'll show you. The first one is the codex for the WPDB. It's quite extensive. There's a heck of a lot to it. We could probably talk about it for hours and hours, but I won't bore you. Or if I haven't bored you already, I guess. And the other is, if you do want a copy of these slides, I'll post them to SlideShare a little bit later today. And with that, I will say, if you have any questions, we can hop out of this. You can contact me in either of those two ways. But we can either do questions, or I can happily share my screen if you want to see any of the additional code, etc.
Hey, could you show us the SlideShare address?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
I say yes, but there.
I'm very sorry about that.
And if you could just zoom in super ultra big.
How about if I just tell you it's at slideshare.net/VegasGeek?
Perfect.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Maybe you could tweet that link too.
I could probably do that as well. Or what I'll even do is I'll pass that over to Cody as well, so you guys can have a copy of that.
What was the last part of that?
Vegas Geek. All one word.
V-E-G-I-S-E-E.
Geek, like.
Oh, geek.
Yeah.
The Vegas Geek.
Vegas geek.
No.
No, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
I'm just here to
Always trying
confuse you.
screw them.
We're very literal here.
Yeah.
All right, guys. You guys have anything else? Any questions? There's got to be some questions.
Anybody have a thought, or anybody have something in conjunction with this that they?
Did anybody? You guys are at the Gameplank in
Avondale.
Avondale. Okay, so that means none of you got to eat breakfast at Yoli's this morning.
No.
No.
No, Yoli's is.
I can't wait to come back out to Phoenix just so I can go to Yoli's.
Yoli's Cafe. It's right behind Gameplank. John got the omelet smothered in gravy one time. It was bigger than his head.
That's true. That's true. All right, guys. If you don't have anything else for me, then I'm going to let you get on to the next.